Hello Math 7 students and welcome to part 2 of Circumferences of Circles. So before we start, I want to review a little bit of the things that Mrs. Drake talked to you guys about in the last video. So our first thing is we're going to start with the definitions again. We have a circumference, which is the length all the way around the circle. It's actually the perimeter of the circle, the length all the way around. From one point all the way around the circle, meeting to that point again. Okay, we also have a diameter, which is the length between two opposite ends of the circle going through the center of the circle. That is the diameter. And then we have the radius, which is from the center of the circle to one point on the outside of the circle. And then we also talked about that the radius and diameter have a special relationship. The diameter is 2 radii. So if we take the radius, you multiply it by 2, you get the diameter. It's exactly half of the diameter. Okay, and then we also talked about these two formulas for finding the circumference of a circle. C, the circumference, equals pi times the diameter, or C equals 2r times pi. Okay, we know that these are basically the same thing because if you notice, 2r is the diameter. So these are actually technically the same formula, but for simplicity, we're going to separate these into two different formulas. Alright, so let's get into some examples. Let's say I gave you a circle with the radius of 5, and I'm just going to draw it just so you guys see what I mean, but at the end of this, I'm actually going to just write it out. So we have a diameter of 5, let's say. Okay, so here we are with our first example with our circle and a diameter of 5. So then my question is, I'm going to ask you in these examples, now that you have this information, please find for me the circumference of this circle. So what you would do if I asked you that question is you'd use this formula because you were given the diameter and not the radius. So you would take pi, which in this case we are going to say is 3.14, so that all of our answers are consistent. We're not rounding to different numbers. So we're going to use 3.14. So I want you to take 3.14 and multiply it by 5. And I'm going to use parenthesis notation to say that I am multiplying those two numbers together. So go ahead and do that if you have a calculator present. Okay, and when you do that, you should get 15.7 or 15 7/10. That is the circumference. And then that question there would be done. This next question is going to have the radius equal to 2. And I'm going to say, okay, given a circle with a radius equal to 2, what is the circumference of the circle? So you're going to be using this formula since you're given the radius and not the diameter. So what you're going to do is start with multiplying your radius by 2. So 2 times 2, and then times pi, which we're going to say is 3.14. Okay, so again, if you have a calculator handy, please go ahead and type that into your calculator and write down what you get. You may pause the video if you need a little bit more time. So what I get is, 12.56, or 12 and 56 hundredths. Okay, so now that is the formula for the circumference. So that means this thing is actually the circumference. Excuse me for my decimal points there. It's not super easy on this program. That's a decimal point. 12 and 56 hundredths. That is my circumference. For that example, if my radius is 2. So my radius is 5. Or I'm sorry, if my diameter is 5, I use this formula that has diameter in it. And I plug it into this formula, meaning I multiply it by pi, and I get the circumference right away. This one right here, I have my radius equal to 2, so I use the formula that includes radius. I multiply it by 2 and multiply it by pi, and I get 12.56, and then that would be my circumference. My last example is going to be a little bit more real world, and I'm not going to give you a picture. And this will happen sometimes where there's not going to be a picture. I'm just going to tell you, the radius is this or the diameter is this, and expect you to be able to find the circumference. So let me give you an example of that. Let's say I told you there's a circle, and its radius is 6 inches. Okay, so let's say that you are trying to create something. You're trying to make a circle for an art project or for some other project that you're doing, and you need to know, okay, well then what would the circumference be? This is an example of when you would use that. Okay, so how much feet around would you need, or how much paint would you need, or something like that? You would need to figure out how large around that circle is. This is an example of where you would actually use that. Okay, so it's a radius, so you would use this formula right here, the one that includes radius instead of the one that includes diameter. So you're going to start there, and you're going to hit, all right, so C equals 2 times 6 times pi, which we're going to say is 3.14. All right, so that's the one you would plug it into, is this one right here that has a radius. Okay, so take a second and plug that into your calculator and hit enter, and let me know what you get. Also, you can pause the video for a second, and that's a good way to check yourself. So I did it previously, and I got this 37.68 inches. Okay, and then that would be my circumference. So what you learn from this is that if you have a circle where its radius is 6 inches, then their circumference, or the length all the way around, is 37.68 inches, or 37 and 68 hundredths of an inch. Alright, and that would be how you do that without a picture. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to email me, leave a comment, and I will answer them. But the easiest and quickest way to get a hold of me is through email. Let me know if you have any questions, guys. Good luck. Thank you.